This is an old video of mine that I made with music, but now I'm going to make one where I talk so that perhaps people will better understand what I'm saying. The pictured man is Forrest Sorrels, special agent in charge of the Dallas office, and he handled this Amos Ewing's matter. And I'm going to start with this KRLD radio broadcast I probably got from David Von Peen's website, where Jim Underwood describes talking to a witness, an 11-year-old colored boy.
And then the police officers found an 11-year-old colored boy named Eunice, that was his last name, who said that he looked up after the first shot and saw a colored man lean out of about the fourth floor window of the Texas School Book Depository building and fire 2 more shots.
And Jim Underwood also told his story to the Warren Commission. By that time, there was one police officer there, and he was a 3-wheeled motorcycle officer, that would be Sergeant Harkness, and a little colored boy whose last name I remember as Eunice. Ewins? It may have been Ewins. It was difficult to understand when he said his name. He was telling the motorcycle officer he had seen a colored man lean out of the window upstairs and he had a rifle. He was telling this to the officer, and the officer took him over and put him in a squad car. By that time, motorcycle officers were arriving, homicide officers were arriving, and I went over and I asked this boy if he had seen someone with a rifle, and he said, "Yes, sir." I said, "Were they white or black?" He said it was a colored man. I said, "Are you sure it was a colored man?" He said, "Yes, sir." I asked him his name, and the only thing I could understand was what I thought his name was Eunice. Was he about 15? I couldn't tell his age. Looked to me to be younger. I would have expected him to be about 10 or 11 years old. Now, if you remember in the report, Underwood said he was 11 years old. Underwood does not say so here, but I think that means he asked the boy how old he was and that he was told he was 11, because I don't think you'd just pick 11. I think you might say, like he said here, 10 or 11. So we've got this boy who looks 10 or 11, and I think told Underwood he was 11, and he saw a color man shooting from the Texas School Book Depository. Underwood's story is consistent, and Mr. Ball doesn't get him to make the boy older, and the reason Mr. Ball said that is because the official story witness is Amos Ewings, and Amos Ewings is 15 years old. So it sounds like there might be 2 different colored boys here. One might be 11 and one might be 15. And along those lines I have made this comparison. Underwood has an 11-year-old named Eunice who saw a colored man shooting at about the 4th floor. The official story says it's a 15-year-old named Ewings who saw a white man shooting, or don't know. The first statement was that it was a white man shooting, but after that he says he doesn't know, and that it came from the 6th floor. So it's like 2 different stories for our 2 different boys. On the Dallas Police Channel recording as it exists today, Channel 2, there is no mention of shots having come from the 4th floor specifically, but there's reason to believe that there was such a transmission originally on the recording, because in the Warner transcript he writes down 4th floor, and because in Shanklin's reports from Dallas he says shots were fired by a colored man from the 4th floor, and presumably Shanklin is getting his information from the Dallas police radio. So I think there was a report by Harkness of the Amos Ewing's witness, or this black boy's witnessing, of a colored man shooting from the 4th floor, but that was removed from the radio. And getting into proving that is too complicated to do here. And looking at the building, I think it's pretty easy to determine that shots could not have come from the 4th floor. There's only one open window on the 4th floor, and that's the window where Vicki Adams and Sandra Stiles and the girl with the camera are. So I don't think there was anybody shooting from there. So the report of the 4th floor, and Jim Underwood said it was about the 4th floor, probably means the 5th floor. It's very unlikely it would mean the 6th floor. So I think this report really means that this boy saw shooting from the 5th floor by a black man. And we know there are 3 black men on the 5th floor, don't we? So the official story has 15-year-old Amos Ewan standing on this corner, watching the president go by and seeing the shooting, and then hiding under this monument. We seem to have 2 people under this monument. One is significantly larger than the other. But that's where Amos Ewan supposedly was hiding. The official story then has him run to the parking lot railroad yard area, where we can see him in this photo. Sergeant Harkness finds him there and brings him on his 3-wheel motorcycle to the front of the building, where Harkness interviews him, and Jim Underwood can be seen on the left-hand side of this photo. As he said, he heard the boy talk to the sergeant, and then Sergeant Harkness put Amos Ewans into Inspector Sawyer's car, and that's where Jim Underwood says that he interviewed the black boy, the 11-year-old black boy. And then after that, this witness was taken with Howard Brennan and Charles Brem by Forrest Sorrels to the sheriff department, where he gave a statement, apparently to a Deputy Jones, and that's this statement here. So that's the official story, and the photography seems to bear it out. But then we have another story here told by Garland Slack in a December 1st and 2nd FBI report, in which it says that Slack said that police officer H.B. Randall picked up a frightened young colored boy who was hiding under a monument, which boy was supposed to have actually witnessed the shooting of the president. He noted that Mrs. Allen in the sheriff's office took a statement from this young colored boy. Mr. Slack also said he made a full and complete statement to a person he believed to be Mrs. Allen. And if we look at Slack's statement, we see that it was taken by Rosemary Allen. But if we look at Ewan's statement, we see that it was taken by Deputy Jones. So Garland Slack said the same person that took his statement took this colored boy's statement. And yet the statement we have from the only colored boy witness we have, Amos Ewans, was taken by somebody else. So this implies that there were 2 colored boys. And yet Slack says that this boy was found under the monument, hiding under the monument. Now, one of the boys apparently ran to the railroad yards, but this one was taken directly from hiding under the monument by an officer, H.B. Randall, whoever he may be, and taken to the sheriff's department. And Garland Slack apparently saw all this because he was sitting there giving a statement to the same person he says took the statement from the colored boy. So it's like there's 2 different stories going on here, even though both of them apparently hid under the monument, and in the picture we can see there apparently are 2 people there. One went one way and one stayed there. One was picked up by H.B. Randall and the other was picked up by Sergeant Harkness. That's 2 different colored boys. And Forrest Sorrels told the Warren Commission that there were 2 different colored boys. He said the little colored boy mentioned he was there with another colored boy that ran off when this thing happened. At the first shot, this boy ran off. He said that he stayed there, but the other boy ran off. I didn't make any effort to get in touch with him because he apparently saw nothing. Now, first of all, that's a lie, of course, but what he's saying is that he, the special agent in charge of the Dallas office of the Secret Service investigating the murder of the president, knows about another witness, but he made no effort to get in touch with this other witness. Yes, he was an 11-year-old boy, but still. The president was murdered. You talk to everybody. But it's a lie, of course. He talked to both of them, and he conflated these 2 witnesses into one. There were 2 colored boys, and Forrest Sorrels, or Forrest Sorrels perhaps, made them into one. And here I've put the 2 stories side by side. We have an 11-year-old who ran to the railroad yard. He was found by Sergeant Harkness. He was put into to Sawyer's car. He was questioned there by Jim Underwood. He was taken by Sorrels to the sheriff's office, and he saw a colored man shooting. Then we got the 15-year-old, who was found by Officer H.B. Randall. And there is no H.B. Randall in the police force. And the only officer with the first initials H.B. is H.B. McLean. But let's not get into that. He was taken by H.B. McLean to the sheriff's office, and he gave statement to Rosemary Allen and to Deputy Jones, is what I'm saying. That is, I think this boy gave the one to Rosemary Allen, and that one was disappeared. And then, well, one or the other. The official story says Deputy Jones took it, and he saw a white man shooting. Now, he later changed that to not knowing whether it was a white man or a black man. But the first statement taken, the one taken by Deputy Jones, says that it was a white man shooting. So you look at the difference here. The main difference is in the stories is that one saw the colored man shooting, one saw the white man shooting or didn't know, and they disappeared the one who saw the colored man shooting because that's not the official story. Now, in the Sheriff Department documents, there is this thing, which happens to spell Amos Ewan's name differently than it's spelled elsewhere. It's spelled with a W, E-W-I-N-S. And that got me to thinking, you know, as you will when you see things that are different, that maybe the name was never spelled Ewans in the first place with a U. And I went looking in a phone book. I think this is the 1961 phone book because it's the one that I have access to. And there is an Ewoons in there. And if Jim Underwood found it hard to understand the name, it might be because the name was Ewoons. And his name is Booker J. Ewoons. Booker J. sounds an awful lot like a black man's name. And it's the only Ewoons in the book. And now when Amos Ewans was a witness, apparently his mother had left his biological father and he was living, presumably she married this other man and that was his stepfather. So I think perhaps Booker J. Ewoons is the actual father of the guy we call Amos Ewans, and using the new name Ewoons, if you look around you will find that there is an 11-year-old Ewoons and a 15-year-old Ewoons, and those are the two ages of our two colored boys, 11 and 15. The 11, according to this, is Ernest L. Ewoons, and the 15-year-old, according to this, is Leonard E. Ewoons. So, if Amos Ewans is really the 15-year-old, I think his name really was Leonard E. Ewoons, and some magic was done to change the names. And probably Leonard E. continued with two different names. He probably played Amos Ewans when he had to, and perhaps he was Leonard E. Ewans when he didn't have to be. I don't know. I don't know exactly what happened there, but I think these probably really are the two brothers. The name Ewans doesn't exist in the phone book, the way it's spelled in the official story, and not in 1961 anyway, before the assassination. Afterwards, I bet it did. But before the assassination, the only name anything like it is this, Ewoons, and there happens to be an 11-year-old and a 15-year-old, and they are the right ages for our story. So it's all about hiding the fact that the young boy saw a colored man shooting, and I think there was a colored man shooting because on the Dallas Police Radio Channel 1 recording, you can hear somebody say, I.B. Jarman armed with a gun, and Jarman was on the 5th floor. So Forrest Sorrels, who was a major player in the cover-up, off the dime, he knew immediately what he had to cover up. He came across a witness who said he saw a black man shooting. He knew he had to cover that up. There were two of these boys. He decided to make them into one, say the other one just ran off and he didn't bother to talk to him. As if anybody would believe that. I guess it's good enough for Mr. Stern of the Warren Commission, apparently. And he made them into one who did not see a colored man shooting.